Welcome to Storage 202. This is about managing your EBS snapshots and armies with Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager. My name is Ashish Palekar. I am the General Manager of our Snapshots business. Before we dive into how to use Data Lifecycle Manager to manage snapshots, a little brief review of what snapshots are. Snapshots are point-in-time backups of modified volume blocks. The first snapshot is a full snapshot of all the blocks. Every subsequent snapshot is incremental. When you delete a snapshot, you only delete the data that is exclusive to that snapshot. And last but not the least, you can take crash-consistent snapshots so that you can easily restore EBS volumes from hardware failures. So snapshots are used for backups. They're used for creating Amazon machine images or armies. But when we look at customer use cases and patterns for using snapshots, we really see three patterns that customers repeatedly do. One is they want to save cost by creating consistent policies that they can apply to their Amazon EBS volumes that is based on the criticality of their data. The second one is they want to protect data in their snapshots in case their account is compromised. And they do this by copying their snapshots across accounts. And the third one is they want to automate deregistration of armies and delete the supporting snapshots so you don't have a trail of armies and snapshots that aren't deleted. We're going to go look at all three of these use cases one by one and how to accomplish them with Data Lifecycle Manager. So what is Data Lifecycle Manager? One of the patterns that we talked about, the three patterns that we talked about, we saw that customers are doing these or building their own scripts and building these automations that allow them to achieve those three use cases. And so looking at that, we wanted to give customers an easy way to achieve those. And that is Amazon Data Lifecycle Manager. It's a simple and automated way to back up your EBS volumes so that you can ensure that you're taking snapshots on a regular schedule. You can define policies to get those schedules. You can use tags to identify volumes and instances that you want to back up. You can retain backups for the various retention periods in case you have internal compliance or audit reasons. You can control costs by determining how many snapshots of your volume that you want to keep. You can use Amazon Identity Access Manager, IAM, policies to determine how you want to do access. And there is no charge to use. You obviously pay for the snapshots and the storage that the snapshots need. And so from a Data Lifecycle Manager standpoint, you can execute these policies really at three levels. One is you can snapshot a volume. So you can take a volume, create a policy that is based on tags, and determine how to take snapshots of that volume. Next, you can operate it at the level of an EC2 instance, which means all the volumes, all the EBS volumes that are attached to the EC2 instance, you can take snapshots of. And then last but not the least, you can now create an army that is based on the schedule for all the volumes that are attached to an EC2 instance. So you can operate at the level of a volume, you can operate at the level of an EC2 instance, and you can operate at the level of an EC2 instance, but create an army. So how do you go about defining a policy? What does a policy really consist of? It really consists of some basic information, like what's your resource type? Is it an instance? Is it a volume? What are the tags which identify which resources are going to be targeted? What's your creation schedule? When do you want the snapshot to actually be created? What's your retention schedule? How many copies of the snapshot you want to keep? What's the duration of the retention that you want? And last but not the least, you can enable optional actions, such as you can do cross-region copies. You can do fast snapshot restore. You can copy tags from the source. And so the composite of all of these is what we would call a Data Lifecycle Manager policy. So let's look at the three use cases one by one and how you would achieve it with DLM. The first use case is saving cost. So the objective behind saving cost is deciding what is the criticality of the application, and then determining what backup policy you want to achieve for your EBS volumes. So in this case, what we're going to go through is creating a single EBS snapshot policy that is targeting a group of volumes. And for that policy, we are going to create 3 separate creation and retention schedules which will be applied based on the criticality of the data. And then we are going to copy monthly backups to another region as soon as the snapshot is created, right? So single policy, 3 sets of creation and retention schedules, and then copying to another region as the snapshot is created. Let's walk through it. First off, the DLM console is in the EC2 console. You can connect to it, and as you can see on the screen, that is where you'd start to create your policies. Then you select your policy type. In this case, it's a schedule-based policy, and we'll cover event-based policies a little later. In this case, we want snapshots, so that's what we select. The next thing we do is we select what are the target resources. Do you want instances or do you want volumes? In this case, it is volumes. And as you can see, we've called it an hourly policy in this case, but you can apply other tags for your purposes. So the first policy within that, or first creation retention schedule within that, is what we call gold. In this case, you're taking a daily snapshot. And so you're taking one snapshot every 24 hours, and you're keeping it for 7 days. This would be for your most critical applications that you need daily backups on. The second one is a weekly schedule. We call it silver, where you can create a weekly schedule. In this case, the snapshot is taken at 10 p.m. on Saturday, and then you keep that weekly snapshot for 4 weeks. The third is the bronze one, where we are creating a monthly snapshot, and that monthly is created on the first day of the month and then kept for 12 months. So you have a daily snapshot that's kept for 7 days, you have a weekly snapshot that's kept for 4 weeks, and a monthly snapshot that's kept for a year. And then, as we talked about before, this monthly snapshot, we are going to go copy to a different region. And in this case, we've chosen US West 1 and keep it there for 12 months, right? So you have now created a schedule created a policy, which based on tags is going to help you create different tiers of snapshots and then copy your monthly snapshot over to a different region. The second use case is about protecting data. What do we mean by that? Some customers are concerned about what happens if their snapshots are compromised in an account. And so one of the use cases that they have is taking a snapshot and copying it across accounts. For those that don't know, a couple of years ago, we launched a new feature that allows customers to copy encrypted snapshots, specifically snapshots that are encrypted with customer managed keys, CMKs, across accounts. So in this case, you have a snapshot that is encrypted with a KMS key resident in account 1. You can share the key from account 1 to account 2, and then you can copy the snapshot into account 2. And in account 2, you can use a different key, you can lock permissions down, and that way others don't get access to that snapshot. So this is another common pattern that we see customers doing. How would you achieve that with Data Lifecycle Manager? So let's look at the steps that you have to go through. In this case, there are 2 accounts. There's a source account and there's a target account. The source account is where the snapshot is being kept. The target account is where the snapshot is being copied to. Okay, so with that terminology out of the way, the steps in the source account are: you want to create and share the snapshot, you want to share the customer managed CMK, and then you want to complete the snapshot sharing setup. In the target account, what you want to do is encrypt and copy the shared snapshot. Then you want to allow the IAM role to use the shared CMK. And then you want to complete the snapshot encrypt and copy setup, right? So there's two different policies. And in fact, one of the ways we achieve this is why we call this an event-based policy, is because the source account will generate an event and the target account is going to process that event. And that's how the coordination between these two policies works. So let's look at it one by one. So in the source account, we are going to go select a snapshot-based, schedule-based policy. Here you have an EBS snapshot policy. In this specific case, we have a daily schedule. We're going to look at the advanced setups, and the advanced setup is about cross-account sharing. The next thing we're going to do is add an account. We want to share the snapshot with a specific account. And then you're set from the source account side. The target account, because it's the receiver of the event, you need an event-based policy. And there we select a cross-account copy policy. This policy now receives the copy event. Based on the copy event, you first have to enable it to use the shared account. So in this case, you're going to add the account that is going to share the snapshot. So you can receive that event from. The next, you're going to say which region you want the snapshot to be copied to. In this case, we've chosen EU West 1. And then how long you want that snapshot to be kept. And that is how you set up the policy. And so now what happens is the policy applies, and you can go create snapshots in account 1. They get shared on a periodic schedule. Then after that schedule is over, they get unshared. And in the target account, during that sharing, the copy happens. And then after the copy happens, it continues on its own retention schedule. That's how you can protect your data across accounts using DLM. Let's look at the third use case. The third use case is about automating ARMY management. In this case, you need to automate the deregistration of EBS-backed ARMYs and deletion of supporting snapshots. So what's the problem to be solved? ARMYs are backed by snapshots. And oftentimes, one of the things that customers came to us and said is, hey, when I delete my ARMY, sometimes that delete doesn't work because it has a snapshot created from it. And what that means is I can delete the ARMY, but the snapshot remains. Or in other cases, I cannot deregister my ARMY because the snapshot is being used. And so what customers would run into is a proliferation of ARMYs and snapshots that were not cleaned up. With DLM, we want to solve that. So what's the use case we're going to walk through? Here, what we're going to do is create an EBS-backed ARMY policy, which is targeting a group of EC2 instances. We'll create a single schedule to create ARMYs on a weekly basis. Then we will deregister the ARMYs after 3 months and then delete its underlying snapshots. Let's look at how we do that. So in this case, you will select a schedule policy that is an EBS-backed ARMY policy. The next thing you're going to do is for that ARMY policy, you're going to set parameters. In this case, we're going to take weekly snapshots. They're going to be taken every Sunday. That's when the ARMY is going to be created. And then you're going to retain that ARMY for a month. In this case, it's at midnight UTC. So that is how we would address the common customer use cases. You can save cost by applying your policy consistently to back up your EBS volumes. You can apply different retention schedules. You can protect your data by copying your snapshots from a source account to a target account. And then you can automate deregistration and deletion of EBS-backed ARMYs and deletion of the underlying snapshots, helping you keep consistent policies and manage cost between your snapshots and ARMYs. DLM has had a very active roadmap. What I want to do now is just quickly walk you through some key launches that DLM has done over the years, and some new features that are just recently launched that we are extremely excited about. DLM launched in July. We expanded over the next few years to be available in all AWS regions and in GovCloud. In March 2020, we added support for 1 hour backup intervals. We've continued that by supporting automation of cross-region copies. We've added support for multiple schedules. We've automated cross-account copies of snapshots. We've added Army Lifecycle Management in November of 2020. And then the 2 new capabilities that we just added, one is enhanced monitoring of policies with CloudWatch Metrics, and the next is automatically deprecating armies. So what are these features? And let's quickly understand what they are. So one of the things that customers came to us and said is, it's awesome that you've given me Data Lifecycle Manager policies, but these policies, I would love to understand the metrics on my policies. Specifically, are they creating the snapshots I want? Am I seeing any alarms? Is the policy not being run, or am I seeing any errors? And so to address that, what we have now launched is metrics, essentially metrics that will be available through CloudWatch. So now you can track the number of resources targeted with each policy run. So that way you have an understanding of, are things changing? Is there anything awry in your snapshots and armies? You can monitor when your snapshots and armies are created. So that way you know when your snapshots are being taken, and you can set up alarms and be notified of failures. So extremely excited about giving this to customers, so that now customers can keep track of how their policies are executing. And then with Army Lifecycle Management, as we talked about earlier, we already support creating armies and backing them up, and then controlling your costs by automatically deleting snapshots and then deregistering the armies. What we're launching is a new feature that allows you to deprecate the armies as well. And as armies get older, and as those images get deprecated, you want to ensure that those deprecated armies are not available. Now you can add that feature to lifecycle management with DLM, and you can enhance your security by automatically deprecating outdated images. So extremely excited to bring that to our customers as well. One of the other questions that we get asked is when to use DLM and when to use backup. And so the mental model that we have is Data Lifecycle Manager is really designed and focused on backup of EC2 instances, EBS volumes, and creating armies. Which means if you're a customer that's concentric to EC2, EBS, and armies, then Data Lifecycle Manager is likely the right fit for you. On the other hand, if you are a customer that wants backup across multiple AWS services, including EC2, EBS, RDS, DynamoDB, EFS, and others, then the right answer for you is likely AWS backup. But that mental model is how we guide customers in terms of selecting which tool to use for their workload. And in fact, one of the other things we see customers in an account use both tools, and so that's something we are excited about as well. That's the discussion for today. If you want to learn more about our portfolio of storage, highly recommend you check out our training and certification. We have over 35 free digital courses, cover everything from S3 to EBS to snapshots to EFS to FSX, along with all the other storage services. Allows you to go deep into each of our services, and you can start to learn about all the new and cool features that all these storage capabilities are launching. With that, thank you. Appreciate you guys taking the time to learn more about DLM and how to manage your snapshots and Army resources. As always, please complete the session survey. We look forward to your feedback on how we can make these sessions better. Thank you so much for attending this session.